So staying in this level 3, in order to kind of finally defeat the hordes, we kind of need to understand how do you embed tech change in your firm, and kind of crucially, how do you do it well? So we're going to hear from 3 planners who've experienced this firsthand and who've also gone through the pain that comes with it. So that tech change might be wholesale changes to their practice management system. It might be building their tech from scratch. But first up, we're going to hear from Jenny Ellis and Nicola Ellis from Wellington Wealth, and they're going to talk about why they opted against the financial services off-the-shelf model for their practice management system. So here are your special skills, and away you go. So perhaps maybe you could start off by telling us why you took the approach that you did in terms of there were models that were out there in terms of your practice management system, but you decided to kind of look elsewhere beyond financial services.
Yeah, I suppose, well, when we set up, so we've been in business now for 7 years. It was 2016 we set up. And at the time, we didn't really have the luxury of any time to plan, or there was no gardening leave. It was very much we had to just get on with it and hit the ground running. So we had to make some informed decisions with reasoned and reasonable assumptions, which is what we do on a day-to-day basis for our clients as a planner. So we use that philosophy in our business, and we had to make some decisions about the technology we used, and earlier on that wheel of all the different systems. I quite often feel like the head exploding emoji at times, because there's just so much choice. But we had to make some decisions when we started. But then nothing stands still, and we're constantly honing that. And we would say we're maybe quite unique in financial services, but I suppose that everybody is unique in their business and what they do, their age and stage of the business. But we felt, or we are a bit unique, so what we've maybe done won't suit everybody, but I'd say in terms of, well, we're sisters in business, so quite often we're on the same wavelength about things. But when we set the business up, we both had quite clearly defined roles. So Jenny was very much, or I was very much client-facing, and Jenny was very much systems and back office facing. And often firms don't start from that point. It's often 2 planners that come together. So we did at the start take the off-the-shelf products that are available and systems that are available. But because Jenny's able to focus on more the business side of things and has that knowledge, and we've both got the end goal of what we want as a business, and we're both in alignment, it allowed, well, Jenny's certainly driven a lot of the tech changes within the business. So I'm a self-confessed planner geek, and Jenny's more the tech geek, I would say. And I'll pass you over to Jenny, because she can probably answer that.
I mean, rather than a tech geek, I would say I'm a data geek with maybe a tech curiosity is more what I would describe myself.
Tech curious.
No, I'm just interested, and I'm the older sister, just for clarity. And so Nikki should be the one that's driving that tech curiosity and tech innovation. But generally, I have to drag her kicking and screaming, to be honest. But no, I just have an interest in doing things better and have a very solutions-focused mindset. So whenever we come up against a problem in business, we sort of, take a step back and try to find the solution to that. And really, we've used IntelliFlow for many years. I've used XPlan. We've done migrations between all different systems. But we were looking for something totally different. And because I came from a different industry, I like having a different perspective on things. And there's so many businesses I admire, and I think, well, what are other businesses doing? Because at the end of the day, a business is just a business. It's not specifically financial services. So why would we be special and use a financial services software? We can run our business on a generalized CRM potentially. So I just started exploring that. But it really depends on your situation as a company, because you'll only have so much resource, so much time to develop these things. And it takes hard work and effort for any system. And I think some of the guys mentioned earlier, you've got to put that effort in to get the benefit back out. It's just no point spending money on it.
Yeah.
But the decisions you have to make along the way are also very important, because with some systems, there's contract length, there's cost, there's tie-in to these contracts, and really, as a small business, 2 years of a tie-in is massive because things are changing so quickly. You want to be a bit more nimble. So that's really why during lockdown, I used my time wisely and started looking around for different systems and just trying to think what was possible. So there's new CRMs, the likes of, I suppose, Asana, Monday, Hive, MS Project. There's plenty more CRM systems out there that you can harness and put your own slant on. So again, there was mention earlier about advisors all coming to the same conclusion, all having the same onboarding journey, but we don't want to be an average advisor. We want to be an exceptional advisor. So we don't want to do what everyone else is doing. We want to be different and want to, give the best service for our clients.
And was that kind of part of why you wanted to kind of mould your own breakaway and all of that?
Yep, it's totally client-focused.
Yeah. Client-focused and customisable, because Jenny actually blew my mind when she said, and hopefully Nikki closed your ears, but she said, IO is essentially just a big customisable spreadsheet. You've got your data in, but you've just got different views, and that's a big challenge in our business, that if we can have on-point views, data at our fingertips for everybody in the business, because everybody needs different data at different stages of the process. So when I'm sitting in front of a client, I want to know absolutely everything about them. If Jenny's doing her compliance check, she needs a different view of the data. If somebody's processing new business, it's all different. It's the same data, but just different views. And we found you can, yes, run your reports in IO, but we wanted more live data. We wanted our customisable dashboards that we can see when we log in. So Jenny and I, from our phones, can see absolutely everything involved in our business. So much so when that question got asked in the last session of how many tech items
like
does a business have?
Yeah.
Jenny's looked it up. We've got 19 because again we've got this all not only our business data, our management data, our compliance data, our task management, but everything in how we run our business is in this one system.
Yeah. And a lot of it's been driven by the regulation that's come out. We've tried to do it as efficiently as we can, because as Keith mentioned earlier, as a small business, you've got 12 hats to wear. So trying to do things efficiently as a business owner is really important and save yourself time. So technology is the thing that can do that. And yeah, we would love as Mark said, the metaverse. We want an advisor in the metaverse so that we can sit on a beach in Hawaii. We're all for embracing tech and the latest whiz bang, gadgets to help us do that. So yeah, we're quite happy about embracing change and technology.
So that all sounds like very magical now, but I imagine kind of going through any kind of tech change process, Nikki, you're already like, oh yeah, it can be quite painful, to put it mildly. Was there we've got a bit of time, so we can spend a bit more time on this later, but was there something, I guess, for either of you where you were like, we really made a mistake in X, in how we approach this?
I think we've got loads of lessons to learn from everything we do. That's how we improve the business continually. Previous business, we had a contract that we took out with another big firm that provides back office software, and they demoed a system to us, and we said it's exactly what we want. When we signed the contract and we started actually customising it for ourselves, they said, oh, you can't have that bit. I was saying, where do I get access to this? And they said, well, you can't have that bit because that's only for big firms. And
oh, right.
And it's wrong to assume that a small firm doesn't want some bells and whistles, because we were from the start thinking about being a bigger firm, even although we were tiny, because that's the only way you can grow well is to have the next 5 years covered or the next 10 years covered. So you need to be thinking of that destination point 10 years down the line to allow you to have a smoother journey.
So I guess to kind of put it a bit crudely, the mistake was maybe believing the hype a little bit around what you were shown at the beginning versus what the reality was when you were in.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're in and it's a bit too late then, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think data truth you've had some issues with probably.
Yeah. What's
the best source to take?
Yeah. That's a bit of a challenge, especially when you're going through the running two systems parallel, and you've not dedicated a system for this particular. This is where you go for this information, and I suppose just change. Change is tricky in any business, and you know, actually Jenny rolled it out really well to the team. It was our younger members of the team that she rolled out first.
I picked them wisely. Because you can only go as fast as your slowest member. I mean, that's the reality. And that doesn't matter whether it's team members or whether it's clients. You know, we've got client portals, but you can only roll it out as fast as clients are willing to accept it. And especially if you want that engagement. So, we picked well.
Yeah, but they then became champions. They adopted it, and actually, you can almost see the moment when everyone got the system. I mean, I must admit I didn't at the first, and it took a while for Jenny to convince me. But actually, I do love it, and it's something we use every day. We would be lost without it. So, but it takes time and hard work.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Well, we'll leave that there for now, but we'll come back to you later. I'm going to bring in you now, Sam. I think your kind of approach to this is that I think you maybe stumbled across some of the similar challenges that Jenny and Nicola were kind of articulating in terms of your practice management system not doing what you wanted it to do. So perhaps you can tell me a little bit about that. But I think rather than kind of going off the shelf kind of outside of financial services, you went a different route. So do you want to maybe tell us about that?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Jenny said there, really. We started as a new business with a blank sheet of paper in 2021, and looking at the industry as it is today is fine, but really in order to innovate and to grow in the way that we wanted to, we had to look at what the industry is going to look like in 5 years' time and 10 years' time. And we found that some of the off-the-shelf providers were going to constrain us in that regard. Fortunately, I met Pete, who's been on stage earlier, from Ningi, and we have very similar vision on the industry. It's not a growing industry at the moment. It's as I think David, who I agreed with most of his points previously. I think he pointed out that platforms it's not new money that's coming onto platforms, and I think there are challenges ahead that, as an industry, we haven't quite grasped. Technological challenges, but also demographic challenges. So we really wanted to look at it from the perspective of let's think about what good looks like, and let's look at what value we can bring. And it's far more than just managing people's investments. It has to be, as financial planners, we have to be at the heart of a community. So what can we do to bring real value to people's lives in ways that we haven't considered before, and what technology is out there to help us do that? Well, we found that that was quite limited. But fortunately, Pete has a very similar mindset to us. His background is financial planning, but he's tech as well. So when we kind of joined forces, we were just aligned, and I think that's really important, to be aligned with your tech provider and as closely as you can.
And I'm interested in that, actually, because maybe not a lot of people would sort of decide, okay, my system isn't working, what's out there, it doesn't work for me, I'm going to go to another company and I'm going to build it myself. So was there not an element of kind of perhaps nervousness around that, or perhaps a bit of, well, this is a bit like untested territory and I could be the guinea pig here?
Well, we kind of mentioned the 2-year break clause. We paid ours.
Oh, you decided you wanted it out. Yeah.
After several months, we just said, you know what, this isn't working for us. We need to follow our path and what we believe, and not wait 2 years for that to happen.
Was that a functionality thing that sort of pushed you over the edge, or was it just a general, this isn't doing what we need it to?
It isn't doing what we wanted. I mean,
was the
it would have
client
been
engagement
fine.
the interesting piece, or what was it that was missing? Was it the client engagement piece? Or?
The flexibility, I would say. In terms of, we charge a little bit differently to a lot of our industry. We want to communicate differently to a lot of our industry does currently, and we need systems and processes to help us streamline and work faster and see more clients ultimately, because again, one issue I see at the moment is that people are obsessed with existing clients, and how can we keep those people happy? How can we make more money out of those people? But there's 92% of the country that don't receive financial advice at the moment, and that's where our focus is. How do we provide value to those people to help them come into the industry? And that's where the new money is. So we need to think innovatively, and we need to communicate differently in order to do that. We found that the existing back office providers kind of were limited, and I think we just needed to think more innovatively.
And where are you at in your journey now, if you don't mind me asking? Is the system built, or is it still in development?
It's in development, and I think it will be for a while, because ultimately AI is going to be involved.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be, we're always adding new things to it, but where this, we're quite a way off from where this will end up, just because of the technology, and we're prepared to go on that journey with the technology, because ultimately we are talking about a lot of potential new clients for the industry to take on, and that can't be done without AI and without really thinking differently to how we do at the moment.
And I suppose the systems that you're kind of building and developing are part of your proposition in a way, because I think I'm right in thinking you're targeting different types of clients to the norm. You've got your subscription-based model. You're kind of targeting younger clients and things. So I suppose the tech and the practice management system and the client engagement is all wrapped up in that. It's not a kind of tech decision. It's a business decision, I guess.
It is, and. Everything's wrapped up. It allows us to, it will ultimately allow everything to become seamless, but from the client's end as well. And you've got to understand what younger clients, potential clients, expect, and the way that you think about how they communicate now, and the technology that they're used to generally. Well, our industry has to match their expectations, because the competition is there, and it's growing. What happens in 3, 4, 5 years' time when these cheap direct-to-customer platforms get even cheaper? You've got ChatGPT plus Google, and where all these things are going to end up, that is a threat. That's an existential threat to our industry. So we need to think differently and communicate differently, and it's technology that's going to allow us to do that.
Okay, great. And I appreciate that it's still kind of being built, but do you have a sort of sense of, if I was doing it again, I might approach something differently in terms of the way you've gone about building this system?
I wouldn't have made the first mistake.
You wouldn't have chosen the wrong provider first.
Chosen the wrong provider. It starts with where you see your business going, ultimately. And if you're an established business with, maybe you've got your, maybe you're an older advisor with who maybe doesn't see themselves around in 5-10 years' time, you will think very differently, perhaps, to somebody who's got a young company and sees younger clients, and it just kind of depends where you are in that journey. But for us, it was about the long term, and actually trying to drive the profession forward, because what we do is really valuable, and actually we haven't even, in my opinion, touched the surface on that yet. I think we just need to kind of open our minds a little bit, and technology will help us do that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Sam, for that. And then Andy, just coming to you now. So, Andy, your business is purpose financial planning, and you have a special skill of hyper-focus in line with your brand.
That's very kind.
But you're kind of part of a fledgling practice, having come from a kind of bigger Scottish-based organisation beforehand. Yep. So your problem, I guess, if you like, that you were trying to solve in terms of your tech was not a kind of practice management piece, as we've heard about before, but it was almost a kind of, well, where do I start on my tech? I'm starting a new business. I've potentially got a universe to choose from. I know you're kind of working sort of within a network model, so there's some constraints within that. But it's something that we kind of, and Steve talked about it, where we ask it in SOTAN, if you could start your tech again, what would you do? And it's quite nice that, what if I could start my tech again? But when you're really doing it, that's a kind of different thing, because it's really real, the decisions you're making. It's not hypothetical. So perhaps if you could kind of talk us through where you started, I guess, in picking out your tech, how that worked with the network dynamic, and then I'll kind of just pick up from there.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. For a very quick bit of context, my firm is very, very young. We've been trading for just over 3 months, so very much brand new. It's a one-person operation at the moment.
Well, congratulations for getting to this
Thanks.
point.
Making mistakes every day, but it's good fun. And as Natalie alluded to, I'm part of the Valid Path network. So within that, we get a set of licenses, names that everybody in here will be familiar with. You know, de facto, ATEB, Xplan's the default back office, and it's you know, that's the sort of tech stack to get us started. But there's total flexibility to go anywhere at all. So we can work, you know, the firm can go in any direction that I want it to. But it's a fantastic dilemma in many ways. And picking up on Sam's point in terms of the sort of firms we want to build and some of the challenges that are out there, I kind of flip it a little bit, and it links into one of the reasons I wanted to start a firm in the first place and go out my own in the first place. And I think we're incredibly lucky at the moment. And okay, I'm an over-optimist, so take this with a pinch of salt. But what a time to be doing what we are doing when the technology is so good as it is. And to Sam's point as well, we're only at the absolute beginning of the input that AI will have in due course. So I think if you're interested in this and you have, you know, you're willing to try and make mistakes with the tech piece in particular, that you can build any sort of firm and it can really go anywhere. And to give two really simple examples, you know, these are things we use now every single day, but 4 years ago, pre-COVID, if you were to say that you could run a business virtually and not actually go face to face, people would, you know, I'd get laughed out of the room if I said that 4 years ago. That has revolutionized our industry and many industries, but our industry in particular, and that again can just get better and better. Jenny talked about the metaverse, and you know, these things will come. And another quick example, I remember when I started advising, and again pre-COVID, we used to send out terms of business in the post. You know, business reply envelope, and you'd wait a week for it to come back. And digital signatures, like how good are they? They're absolutely fantastic. I'm such a big fan. It doesn't matter who you use. But they are just incredible. You know, you can send stuff out to clients, get them back instantly, send it to providers. More and more providers are starting to accept that that is the natural way that we should be working. And those that don't will naturally be left behind. So I think, you know, it's a fantastic time to be running a business. And I'll make lots of mistakes during it. But yeah, what a time to be in this space.
Oh, well, that sounds like there is some progress to be had in all amongst all of this. That's good. I'll probably just ask my question again, if that's all right. Sorry, just in terms of your approach to choosing the tech, the tech that was in your control, what was that, and how did you kind of go about trying to make sure that you had the right kit for this new business that you're trying to build?
So, to be honest, some of the stuff that we've been given thus far actually works really well. So, again, using a specific example, I was a former Voyant user, but I've been really impressed with CashCalc. That sort of comes as part of our package. The reporting that can generate really quickly, the client portal, the digital fact find, big fan, think it's excellent. So there wasn't, you know, I'm generally pretty happy with that. There didn't need to be much beyond that, so perhaps credit with the tech stack that I was given thus far. But other than that, I've tried to keep it pretty simple and not do anything too kind of experimental at this stage, because, you know, 3 months in, the focus is just on onboarding clients and things like that have been very patient. So I've been lucky that I've not had to push too much in terms of the new tech sector, but things that I'm looking at would be, you know, almost diversifying a little bit. Sam and I spoke about this earlier as to building other streams of potential revenue for a firm. So financial education courses and things like that. You know, we could eventually, any firm could branch into that, and that opens up a much wider market than just the traditional wealth sector. So again, I've probably not answered the question directly, Natalie. I've been very lucky that I've got a good tech stack at the moment, and it does the job I need it to. But yeah, I think the potential is very much there if we want to go into different revenue streams as well.
Okay, and so I guess I'm interested to understand, you came from a kind of, I think, fairly well-established a big firm before. You're now kind of out on your own. How much of the tech from the old place ended up at the new place, or did you take the opportunity to go, I'm going to push against it and I'm going to choose everything new?
That's a really good question. That's not a criticism of the tech I was using at all, but I don't think there's really anything that's
Nothing
the same,
left.
other than real basic stuff like using Microsoft. Other than that, it's pretty much all different. So different cash flow, different back office, different digital signature provider. Really basic stuff, but all that is different. So it's been a lot of learning. But again, it's just worked thus far. And I've not had to make too many drastic changes.
And was part of that because you were setting up on your own, so you wanted to rebel and not do it the way that you'd seen it done before? Or were you kind of a day-to-day user of all of those systems, and you could kind of perhaps see where the things didn't work in the way that you wanted to work, I guess?
A bit of both. I think in terms of, when I was employed, I wasn't necessarily seeing it from the practice management level, so a bit of an unfair comparison in the back office system we were using compared to what I'm using now, and I'm seeing it from a different perspective. So it's not necessarily that the stuff we were using was bad, but just that I was more conscious of what else was out there. We've talked a lot today about tech that's specifically focused in our sector, and as we should. We saw the graph earlier, and there was lots of different providers, and that's just in our sector. But there's so many other fantastic bits of kit that are totally independent of our sector that we can use and really build a practice with. Whether that's a CRM that's kind of been molded into financial services, or it's something really cool like Calendly, which is just awesome, and that again can go in absolutely every business. So again, probably not answered the question directly, Natalie, but it was a bit of both. Some things perhaps we were using we could have used better, but equally I felt there was more opportunity by kind of looking a little bit outside the box.
Okay, great. And I suppose for the rest of the planners gathered here, is there anything kind of amongst what you've heard where you're kind of going, yeah, I saw that in my own experience, or anything you want to come back on particularly?
I mean, I think even now we would probably be doing different things if we were setting up today, because it just depends on your size, your stage, your number of team. So everything is different as you grow.
Yeah, because we did start with a blank piece of paper in 2016, but that goes out the window quite quickly, and because it's constantly evolving, and just, embracing it.
We like the wise old sage Ferris Bueller. When I say life moves pretty fast, if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Yeah.
And that's, we have to stop because it's a treadmill and people are throwing things at you as a business owner you've got to cope with, and you're getting faster and faster, but you've got to just stop and say, let's take a bird's eye view in the business and regroup and then go again. So and that's what you have to do.
And so kind of speaking to you and sort of firms that I've sort of seen over the last few weeks, it might be that I'm kind of speaking to a certain set of firms or whatever, but there does seem to be a sense of maybe people wanting to kind of mould and break away and do their own thing. I mean, Sam, do you sort of get that sense of people wanting to change things up from the practitioner perspective, or do you feel like you're an outlier in looking outside of what's there?
At the moment, I feel like we're an outlier, generally.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because I think a lot of established businesses maybe don't need to change. We are coming at it from the perspective of a startup business, ultimately. So our mindset is that. Whereas I think that if you've got an established business with a client bank that makes you a nice profit every year, maybe you don't need to think like that. But David Ferguson mentioned earlier about the cost of platforms. Now technology is deflationary in its nature, and as the challenges that I've kind of mentioned come more into play, our fee structures are going to be challenged, and that's why we've tried to become a little bit more different. We've tried to think a little bit differently in that regard, but I am getting a lot of good feedback, a lot of interested questions seem to be coming this way, but generally I kind of feel like an outlier.
Yeah. Okay, great. Right, so we're going to leave it there. Thanks to our planners. We're going to kind of keep you here for now, but I need to let you know that this is the end of level 3. We have decided that we have defeated the hordes, but the big question that we need to know now is what will happen to Lang next in our last and final level.